Dynamite Network presents Football Time.
Hey, welcome to the Football Time Show. We're into week 3 of the college football season. Week 2 was a little bit better for our man Dynamite David. Came out of the blocks hot and finished strong there, certainly. So, let's get into week 3. What do you think about week 3? We thought week 2 was a little light. Week 3, pretty light. Not even a lot of marquee matchup games, really, that we're looking forward to over this week. But what'd you make of the week 3 slate here?
Yeah, looking ahead at week 3, definitely it's a little leaner than week 2. At least in week 2, we had some good divisional matchups, especially in the SEC. So really had to dig to find some action that I thought was really worth it this week. But, we still got football this weekend, so nothing too much to complain about.
And they put lines on these games, and we bet on them. So let's get into week 2 back there. You were much better in week 2. You ended up having a total net of 1465.90. So 4,090 and 90 in wins and 265.25 in losses. So you came out positive, hit a couple of nice little games there, especially USC was a nice one for you. And the South Carolina game, you turned out to be right on that. Sort of. I will say, I bet you were holding on a little there at the end as South Carolina kept driving down for cheap points. But nonetheless, got Arkansas. It would be nice if South Carolina might have learned how to defend the off-tackle play that Arkansas ran, 75 straight times. But nonetheless, back in the positive. So your new balance goes up to 20,750. What'd you like about week 2?
I picked a lot of favorites, but a lot of favorites really kind of carried the day. I was a little bummed out on North Carolina. I had a -7.5. I think I would have hit that, and I had a parlay riding on that one as well. They couldn't quite cover that hook at -7.5, so I was a little bummed there. But other than that, all in all, it was a good week. I think I went 10-5 on my straight bets, so that's pretty solid. I remained in the positive after about a 600 profit win last week. Only about 337, like you said. I lost a couple of those straight bets, the ones we went head-to-head. South Carolina didn't quite stand up and cover, and neither did Stanford. I didn't have a ton of Stanford, but the South Carolina one where I had the triple on that, the under, the South Carolina money line and the South Carolina spread. Went 0 for 3 on that one. A little bit more points scored in that game than I thought, but nonetheless, I did hit 3 parlays. Three-team parlays on that one. I will say real quick on that South Carolina game, Beamer really knows how to keep a team fighting, even though they're losing. So I expect them to break through eventually. I don't know when it's going to happen, but
they do need to defend a little bit.
I've never seen a team, get so fired up when they're down 3 touchdowns.
Yes, I know. I think that was part of why I liked it, because I saw that last year. It didn't matter. They could be getting killed, which Arkansas was killing them the whole game. I mean, that score, what it was not even indicative of the game, but it was sitting right there. South Carolina had 2 possessions in a row to go down and get that cheap touchdown and cover that spread, and I was holding on there that I get one of those, but didn't quite get it. But I did hit 3 parlays last week, so that's 5 parlays in the first 2 weeks that I've hit. And then somehow it got even weirder for my underdog moneyline parlays. I didn't do the round robin this week, but I made 4, and 3 of them I hit 1 leg in each. So somehow I'm finding ways to be in the ball game in my moneyline parlays, but I haven't hit quite big one yet. But 337.27 was the net profit for me overall. So that brings my balance up to 26,005.46, hovering around there. Maybe get in a slot play with that extra change. All right, let's get into week 3. We talked about it pretty light slate. Let's start out in the ACC. Friday night, Florida State, Louisville. Louisville, I made a last-minute money line bet on them last week and sort of barely pulled it out. That game versus Central Florida was really, really bad, but Louisville nonetheless got the win. Florida State continued to win, let's say. I don't know, look good would be the proper term, but they won. So a matchup here, Florida State 2.5-point favorites at Louisville. What do you think of this game going into it?
Yeah, both of these teams, I look at Louisville, week one, they just got destroyed by Syracuse. But then they come back and get a good win against the UCF team that I thought was going to win big.
On the road at UCF.
I had picked UCF to cover the spread on that one, and I was wrong. So they came back a little bit with more fight there. So we'll see how they're going to do coming home against this Florida State team that went into Baton Rouge and got a win against LSU. So, Florida State, they're road tested, and so I think they can get it done, but we'll see what Louisville shows up.
Yeah, I think that's a conclusion I came to. I watched Louisville last week. They're still really, really struggling on offense. They couldn't find a rhythm. They got a couple little gimmick things here and there that got them the touchdowns. Their defense played really, really well. And a couple goal line stops there down there to win that game. But I was not impressed with the way Louisville went down there. I think this Florida State team is solid. I don't think it's going to be capable of beating elite teams, but I think they're one of those teams that you're going to look at the end of the year and they might have 8-9 wins, and you're like, this isn't a very good team, but they have 9 wins. And so I think they can go into Louisville. It'll be a little difficult on a Friday night, but this probably will set where Florida State is too. Can they go into Louisville, win, and cover that spread and sort of at least make themselves a relevant team before they get into ACC play. And then let's go to the next one. Miami, Texas A&M. I think ESPN certainly had this one pegged as the showdown of teams that are wanting to break through and get into that playoff. But A&M did what A&M has done, I don't know, possibly since the 1890s, and scored 13 points in a game versus Appy State. Didn't even look like they really deserved to win. It wasn't even one of those games where you watch it and go, well, Appy State sort of lucked their way into it. Appy State was a better team on the day in all facets, defensively, offensively, special teams. Appy State was the better team. A&M looked pretty poor the whole game, so let's talk about the A&M one, and then we'll get into the Miami A&M game. What'd you make of A&M this last week? We had I don't think we were aggressive on the underdog play, but we knew it'd be a tough game.
Yeah, they just can't seem to get their offense going under King at quarterback. I'm really kind of shocked with a lot of the talent they've got on this team, and they just can't put points on the board. Defense has been solid in both of their games, but they can't put up the points, and that's going to be problematic, and they got to get some consistency here. Getting into that Miami A&M matchup, I would have liked Miami a lot more had A&M won last week. Losing 2 at home in a row at College Station, I don't know. Yeah,
I think that's where I came from, where I think I was, last week I was bullish on that week 3 game where I thought Miami might be getting, double-digit points, 10 to 14 points if A&M, played, I don't want to say strong because they didn't even play all that strong in week 1. You could tell their offense was still struggling. But, you figured versus an Appy State team that allowed North Carolina to, score 60 points on them. I don't think the offensive talent between A&M and North Carolina I'd call would be a huge gap.
Yeah.
So you thought if A&M was going to be able to score points on Appy State, they were not. And
yeah, I had the over in that game. That was one of my misses.
Well, Appy State probably should have scored 2 or 3 more touchdowns. So there is that to play in there. But yeah, the number came in at 5, and that's where I got, well, this isn't as good. And I think that's probably a story throughout this. Every number I saw was a little off where I want it to be. I think even if it was, 7, you get that full touchdown off that, sort of key number, I'd lean a little bit towards Miami. But I'm just like, is A&M going to lose 2 straight games at home? And I just can't be aggressive in that one. But I am curious to see what this Texas A&M offense, if they are struggling to move the ball on Appy State. I can't convince myself that they're going to be lighting up the scoreboard here versus Miami.
Yeah, I just got a big red flag on this matchup. I really, really want to take Miami, but like you said, it's not quite enough points. Plus the factor of A&M losing 2 in a row at home. It doesn't happen that often.
Yes.
And so that's just getting me to stay away. Gun to my head, I'd probably lean Miami, but I'm staying out of this one.
Yeah, I think I threw Miami in a parlay down there as just sort of parlay filler, but I think it went from last week sort of being ready to be aggressive on this game and take the plus to sort of this is parlay filler at the ball.
I think you hit it nail on the head. If A&M had come out and put 30 or 40 on App State and just took care of business, this would have been a double-digit spread.
Yeah, I think even if they had lost to App State and it would have been like 35-28, 38-35, or hell, even the 60-63, that I would have been, okay, at least A&M can score some points. But watching that game, they were lucky to get the points that they did.
Yeah.
They have one play, which is hand it to the running back, and that's about it. So, that's about all in the ACC that I thought was big time. What do you got bets-wise out of the ACC?
I just got one Friday night, and I'm going to take Florida State to cover the 2.5. I think this is going to be a hard-fought game, but I like that number being under the 3, and I just think they're a better team. And like I said, they've already gone into Baton Rouge, so they've proven that they can play in a hostile environment. Louisville is not Baton Rouge. So.
Well, technically it was New Orleans, but...
Oh, well, yes. I apologize, but I'm a little off there. But still, I think that you can count that as a road game.
That is correct. I would say still the Superdome, hostile environment, nonetheless, playing LSU.
Yeah, so I just think Florida State's just going to have just enough to get over that 2.5.
Yeah, I as well leaned with you. We're teamed up, so everyone beware, because that probably
you might want to fade us.
That probably means Florida State's going to score 3 points and have 5 turnovers, and Louisville's going to win 13-3 or something. But I think it's been a while since we've both been teamed up on taking a Florida State team favored on the road. So we're going to give it a little down on this one. So I got Florida State minus the 2.5 as well for 250, and I got one more out of this: NC State minus 9.5 versus Texas Tech. I just think this is a game where NC State probably finds their rhythm here, plays really well. I think Texas Tech will struggle on the road. They played pretty well in that Houston game. Another game that probably sort of killed a couple games for you is Houston, didn't quite play as well as probably they should. And I watched a lot of that game, and once again, it was the Houston thing where they were the better team. Well, but it finds a way into overtime.
Even in overtime,
yes,
they had Texas Tech to 4th and 24 and gave up a 25-yard game.
That's ignoring the kickoff return that they gave up after they had just taken the lead, and then Texas Tech only needed about 15 yards to kick the field goal at the end of the game. And
also, not a good look, Texas Tech storming the field after beating Houston.
Yes, I know. Especially considering you beat them last year as well. So, hey, whatever. Maybe they thought Ware was still playing quarterback and it was the 1980s. I don't know. But nonetheless, I like NC State minus the 9.5. I think they're going to roll in this game. I think Texas Tech, like you said, they were all hyped up after beating Houston. So I think this is a letdown spot here for Texas Tech. So I like NC State minus the 9.5. I got 500 on that one. All right, let's go to the AAC. These aren't big matchups, but they're interesting ones. I think, might decide who wins 6, 7, 8 games. But the first one, Kansas. Speaking of the underdogs that I liked and almost hit that big time UNLV Kansas parlay last week. Just needed UNLV to make one drive there at the end and couldn't quite find it. But nonetheless, Kansas off to a 2-0 start.
Yeah.
And looking like a good football team. Now, I know both you and I really like Lance Leopold, and he's gotten this thing really, really nice. And they sort of play his style. They look like Buffalo, not this year, certainly, but Buffalo when Lance Leopold was there. We mentioned Houston, who probably should be 1-1, but they probably should have lost the UT San Antonio game, and they probably should have won the Texas Tech game. They have the record that they have, but what do you make of this Kansas-Houston game? Can Kansas keep this going and go into Houston and win? We're going to get to it with UT San Antonio, but this is a 2-3 straight pretty rough games for Houston. There's no patties. They open at UT San Antonio, then go to Texas Tech. Now we're at home playing a Kansas team who just went into West Virginia.
Well, it worked out for Houston. They got the win in the conference game. And they're coming back into another non-conference game here. So even if they got the loss here, they're still looking pretty. But Kansas is looking good, and they're getting a lot of points here. I've been eyeballing this one. Be interesting to see what energy Houston comes out with after back-to-back overtime games.
We're gonna get that with UT San Antonio as well.
Kansas is playing with a little bit more motivation, I think, than Houston. Houston's kind of like, well, we've already got a loss, so we'll see. But they're coming home here
in a non-conference game as well.
Yeah, so. It wouldn't shock me to see Kansas get another big, solid win. This would be a huge signature win for them. Probably even technically better than the Texas win last year, because this Houston team is probably better than that last year's Texas team. But we'll see. I think they could keep this close for sure, especially the way Houston hasn't been able to put things away like they should.
Houston is just prone to play close games. So
look at their coach.
Yes, definitely so. So definitely, I'd lean coaching matchup wise to Kansas, nonetheless. But let's go to the other one. I asked earlier your opinion on this game because SMU's at Maryland. I don't think we have a real feel for Maryland. I talked to you. They beat Buffalo, but then Buffalo the next week went and lost to Holy Cross. Then they beat Charlotte pretty good, but the week before Charlotte, I can't remember which Carolina team they lost to. That was a subdivision team, but they got handled pretty good as well. Basically Maryland has played 2 cupcakes. SMU, 1 cupcake, and then I think what I'm banking on here is the more impressive going up to North Texas and not just winning, but beating them pretty good. So what do you make of this SMU Maryland matchup here?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. We looked at that line. It's like at 71, 72. So these guys are going to be going back and forth. I couldn't really get a good read on either one of these teams yet. I just don't have enough on them yet. Maryland hasn't really played a real team yet. Yeah. This is probably their toughest matchup on the year. Can they keep that high-powered offense going up against a legitimate team?
Can the defense also hold SMU, whose offense is as well?
And SMU's offense is almost right there on par with Maryland's. I look, both of these quarterbacks, I think, have thrown for 650-plus yards on the season in 2 games. So look for a lot of yards here. Could come into a turnover matchup. Who commits most turnovers will lose the game. That's why I'm kind of staying away, because you really can't tell which side it's going to go, and it wouldn't shock me to see either one of these teams win.
Yeah. I pulled it off my straight bet list. I threw it into one of my parlays. I don't know what Maryland is. I thought coming in that they were a pretty poor team, but it seems they scheduled pretty smartly and scheduled 2 teams who are really, really poor. So this game will be, intriguing to see if SMU, who I think is a legitimate team, on their level, probably above their level, really, if they can sort of hang with SMU. Yeah. And if they can beat SMU and beat them pretty impressively, then I'll sort of start to look at Maryland a little bit differently, because I think we're both sort of looking for teams in that Big Ten that isn't Ohio State right now.
I don't think anybody's standing up right now after that Wisconsin loss last week.
Yes, definitely so. So, do you want to get to your UT San Antonio bet here, or do you want to wait till we get down here into the Big 12?
Let's wait for the Big 12.
All right, let's get to the Big 12. All right, we're going into the Big 12.
No bets in the AAC for either one of us.
No bets for the AAC for either of us this week, which is probably a little strange, because I think we're both pretty big on this conference. But Big 12, we're going to start out Oklahoma versus Nebraska. The big news here is, Scott Frost probably mercilessly finally let go.
I was a little surprised. I was looking they could have saved about $12 million waiting till October 1st, but that just goes to show you how much money Nebraska has. They don't care.
The other thing is his friend and teammate is the AD there. So that might have been what we call a little bone thrown his way for having to go down to your friend and teammate and fire them from their job. It just never worked out for Scott Frost at Nebraska. Yeah. And honestly, I'm really, really shocked at how poorly it went because, we wanted Frost here at Tennessee, a couple of years ago, and he just never could right this ship. So do you think this is a coaching thing, or do you just think this is Nebraska and, Frost will probably find another job and sort of build his career back up, and it's just Nebraska. No one can win there. Basically, since they canned Solich in 2 or 3 after winning 9 games, other than maybe 1 or 2 Bo Pelini years.
Yep, I think Pelini got 9 one year.
Yeah, but even then, it was he wins 9, then he wins 6. Yeah. It was never, consistent 9, 9, 9. They just have never found their rhythm. So is this Scott Frost bad coaching, or is this just Nebraska? It's not what we know from the 70s, 80s, 90s.
It may just come down to simple recruiting and getting the right players at the right time.
Bad moves to the Big Ten.
Yeah, and weird scheduling and just kind of being that in between area where they're more of a they don't really fit in the Big Ten, like you said there. That's a tough spot, and recruiting there is not as great as it used to be because they haven't been a power in a long time. But, I didn't really see anything coaching-wise that really impressed me either. I mean, they never looked...
That was what's so hard. His record was so poor in, one-score games.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And, you sort of think about it. If he wins even like half those one-score games, Nebraska's probably 7-8 win team a couple of those years. And instead, they don't win any of them. And he's winning 4 or 5 games a year.
And I really look at the quarterback play he's had while he's there. He's had pretty poor quarterback performances, and he had Martinez there for I guess 3 years. That was terrible, and that was pretty much his whole tenure there. So just couldn't find the star playmaker to get it done, and never really could quite get the offense going that he had, or the defense. And so just a really mess of a situation. I think he can succeed elsewhere, but I think he's going to have to step back probably to a non-Power 5 team again and work his way back up.
Yeah, we'll see where he lands. We'll see where Nebraska goes. I'm sure they have their eye on Kansas. I think I mentioned it last week. How long will Lance be there? As he's basically turned this Kansas program around in 2 years.
Oh, yeah, if he can get this Kansas team to a bowl game, he's gone. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people scooping him up.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, so Oklahoma, Nebraska, overall, what do you make of the matchup? Do you think there's a little, firing boost from Nebraska? Or do you think this is probably going to go from bad to worse as this season continues?
I think this is going to go from bad to worse. I think you're going to have players maybe start looking at, hey, where can I go now? They might wait to see who's the coaches around, but I mean, there's nothing really to fight for now. They've already dropped 2 games, should have dropped 3. Just real ugly start, and I guess only 1 conference loss.
Yes,
but I don't know how much fight they're going to have in them, really, and this Oklahoma team has just offensively got way more firepower.
Yeah, I think I stayed away from that just based on I was a little nervous about Oklahoma going into Nebraska. This is an old traditional rivalry, a real one from 2 teams who should be rivals and not in opposite conferences. So I was a little nervous about that. And then you get maybe, 1 or 2 games where these guys, play a little above their heads for, new coach, recognizing that you just got old coach canned. So I stayed away from this one. But I will say, not a ton. It wasn't like I was aggressively ready to take Nebraska in that plus 11.5. I just was sort of blackout on this one. We'll see what falls. But I'm curious to see if we get any boost whatsoever, as bad as Nebraska's been, because it's been really bad this year. You mentioned they could very easily be 0-3 instead of 1-2.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next game out of the Big 12, UT San Antonio. Big game number 3 here. This is quite a opening set here. The Army game played out pretty much as I called it last week, where I said I think they might start out a little slow, which they did, and then by the fourth quarter found their rhythm, but they got a little bit too far behind. Game went into overtime, was able to win it in overtime, but nonetheless got that tough win at a noon game in Army after the tough loss to Houston the week before in overtime. Now they go to Texas. I think we were both a little impressed with Texas last week. They stepped up defensively. I thought that was probably the best I'd seen Texas play defense in, I don't know, 15 years.
Yeah,
when was
sure.
the last time Mac Brown was there? Was probably the last time I saw them play any type of defense like that. Offensively, you know, it was hot and cold. They were able to move the ball up into a point in the red zone, and then it sort of petered out.
And their quarterback went out.
And their quarterback went out. Now, you know, I don't know how much of that it played because those two were battling for the job in the summer. You know, and they're both high-end recruits. That's the thing where I don't, both of them were very top-end recruits, so it's not like either one's talent was ever in question. But Ewers was playing pretty well. They still were having red zone issues before he went out. That probably is what decided the game. They weren't able to get, touchdowns, and they traded them for field goals and then missed that chippy right there at the end.
Yeah, I was watching that game, and I looked over at my father-in-law. We were watching the game together, and I was just like, Texas needed touchdowns here. If you're going to beat a team like Bama, when you get those opportunities, you have to get the max points, and settling for those field goals was the game breaker there. But largest crowd ever on hand in Austin. That was for them big time game. But I'm interested to see if they come with that same energy this week, because they're going to need it.
I was talking to the wife as I was watching the game. I was like, Bama can play awful and still find a way to win. To beat Bama, a couple luck things have to go your way, and I think Bama having 16 penalties in a game probably counts as that, because I don't think I've seen a Nick Saban team since he was at Michigan State have 15 penalties or 16 penalties in a game. And then you have to get touchdowns. You have to get touchdowns and build a lead, so they're going to make a push there in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They didn't get that. They got field goals, and they didn't come away with a win. But I did at least say Texas played good game, good defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest thing. They didn't just get torched, offensively. So let's shift to this game. UT San Antonio, this is another tough opponent. Do we get the letdown off the Bama game, or does Texas ride this and, build momentum here onto the season?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of a letdown here. Probably not as much as you would have seen had Texas beat Alabama. Yeah. But there's a lot of things here that could have made this line even sweeter. I've been actually eyeballing this one for a while. Had UTSA not gone into overtime the week before, had Texas beat Alabama, I think that would have shifted the line a little bit right there. Would have probably got it over the 2-touchdown mark. But I like this UT San Antonio team. They've got they can run the ball really well. They play solid defense except for a play action pass against Army. But
Texas might want to start practicing that, because they seemed very confused. Like they didn't think Army could throw the ball, like it was illegal.
But I don't think they'll come out with the same defensive scheme, because you have to come up with a unique scheme to defend against Army. So I think they'll be able to play a little bit better defense against this Texas team. So if Texas comes out struggling to move the ball, I think this game could be competitive.
Yeah, the number was what I wanted. 2 touchdowns here. I don't like that 12.5, especially off UT San Antonio. Home game, big one versus Houston, then up noon game in Army, and now back playing in Texas in a really, really big game. That's just 3 bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
And yes, Texas had their big game last week, but they also had the cupcake. UT San Antonio hasn't had their cupcake. I think if UT San Antonio had had just an easy one this week and then had to build back up the next week, to sort of try to rev up for this game, I'd be a little bit more. So I pulled off that. I think I do have UT San Antonio in a money line parlay, because I do think there's definitely a chance they can hang with them. And if they can control Texas's running back, I'm curious to see if Texas can control UT San Antonio's running game. We saw them control Bama's pretty good, but I wonder how much of that is Bama still struggling along the offensive line, not getting that running game going like they have the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I've noticed a lack of the Bama's receivers haven't really stood out much very well this year either.
That's a little hard to do though, considering they've had first-round receivers for like 4 of them for, I don't know, 6 straight years, 8 straight years, wherever Julio Jones and then on.
I will say, watch this line. It could creep back up. It opened at 13.5. It got down to 10.5. It's already back up at 12.5. Game day as more casual bettors come in and bet on Texas. This could get pushed up to 14. I doubt it makes that jump. I'd say 13.5 is probably the max. I don't think they want to give you that 2 touchdown. But you may get a little bit more value here if you wait.
Yeah, I might watch it, and if it gets to that 14, but I don't think it will because I think, the odds makers are too smart. Yeah. They know the second they move it to 14, a bunch of, sharp bettors are going to come in and pound in money on UT San Antonio. I think they know keeping it at 12.5, that'll scare off people from grabbing the UT San Antonio, and it's a big spread for Texas. So I think they sort of got it where it'll be even betting throughout. So, yeah, keep a watch because it has moved a little bit, and maybe a lot of money comes in. But 13.5 might be the top end that you'll probably get UT San Antonio on. But, yeah. All right, let's move to the Big Ten.
Let's get my bets in here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
You don't have any bets
I
in
don't
this
have any
conference
Big
here.
12 bets.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw, you've got it in Conference USA. We've talked about this game. I'm going to go ahead and give it now.
Well, it was next to UTEP. I just saw a lot of U's in Texas schools.
I'm taking the points here with UTSA. I think they're going to be able to keep this one within that 12.5. So I'm taking UTSA plus the 12.5. I got 250 on that. And I also like Oklahoma big, minus 11.5. I think anything under 2 touchdowns is easy money. I've got 2 units on that, $500. Oklahoma win is big at Nebraska.
Yeah, nothing for me out of the Big 12 this week, so we'll move to the Big 10, where I'm a little light as well.
That's a big goose egg on picks in the Big 10 for you.
So we're AAC, Big 12, Big 10. No straight bets for me. They will be in parlays. All right, Big 10. Couple matchups here. Purdue, Syracuse. I think this one is intriguing because Syracuse, I think, has played well for 2 straight games here. Now, the other one, sort of a gimme. Yeah. But that first game, beating Louisville the way they did, and then watching Louisville's defense sort of shut down Central Florida, I think you sort of look at that and go, interesting. Purdue, I don't really know what we have. We'll probably know a little more with what Penn State does. But sadly, this game goes before that one, so we probably won't know. Purdue at Syracuse. Where are you sitting here? What are you thinking in this game?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised at the line on this one. I thought Purdue would come in a little heavier favorites. Maybe that's just because I was bigger on Purdue preseason. But, going into the Dome is tough. And Syracuse has already got a couple of really solid wins. They're looking good. But I like the play here with getting even money on a pick'em game for Purdue. I think their offense is waiting to explode, and I think we could have a good show here.
Yeah, I couldn't take Purdue. I'm scared of Syracuse in the Dome, especially since Syracuse might be good, and that's what scares me. Purdue going to Syracuse, tough place to play, only a pick'em. I think I'd be more likely if you could move that, which I don't think it'll move to where people are taking Purdue, and I can get a couple points on Q's. I might end up taking Q's, but at pick'em I probably won't be aggressive. I'll still just look at them. But I'm really interested to see this game because I think we're looking for good teams here in the Big Ten. And, Purdue's one of them we think is good. They had that tough matchup versus Penn State and then the easy one. But we'll learn a little bit more about Purdue here because we're really, I think, searching for good teams in the Big Ten, because last week was not a good week. Certainly on the other side of the bracket, where the Iowas and the Wisconsins and such lie. I had to watch those games visually with my eyes. I don't know if I fully recovered, other than I passed out for a little 5-minute window there, and all of a sudden Clelvin Slovis was no longer in the game. But nonetheless, I crossed this one out because I was waiting and see. Next up, big one, rematch from last year when Auburn went into Penn State. Penn State goes down to Auburn. Auburn has not looked great.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to judge because they've been playing teams they know they can win, so you don't know how much real game plan is going into this, how much aggressiveness is going into it. But Penn State comes in, nice win on the road versus Purdue. How do you sort of handicap this matchup here?
I tend to lean Penn State here, but I really don't know a whole lot about Auburn yet this year. I know they struggled to put points on the board last year. That was a really competitive game last year at Penn State, and Penn State impressed me in their win against Purdue. But this is going to be a tough road match. A Big Ten team going down into the SEC is going to be a hostile environment. I'm just going to watch this one and just kind of really figure out both of these teams. If Penn State gets a win here, you look to them to probably be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Auburn gets a win. Do you really still know that much about Auburn, or is it just another weak Big Ten team coming in? It's hard to tell sometimes, that crossover between where the Big Ten teams lie and match up against the SEC. Auburn could be a fourth-place SEC West team and probably finish second in the Big Ten. So we'll see where that goes. But I really couldn't get enough of a feel to want to go either direction in this matchup.
Yeah. I just think the road will put Auburn ahead. We'll see where they are. It's just, even last year's game, Auburn didn't play really well at all, and they still sort of were right there to make a drive or two to win that game. So I think Penn State probably coming down to Auburn. I think these two teams probably are in and around the same level. I think that tips it over. So, I lean Auburn here a little bit, getting points at home, too.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. Now, I might come away yelling at how terrible Auburn's offense. That feels like a 10-year thing. But none other
since
than
Cam was there.
Other than the Cam Newton year. Other than that, yes, come away angry about what Auburn's offense is. Nonetheless, I kind of like Auburn in this one. Next up, Michigan State goes to Washington. This one, I think
That's a tough road.
this one's going to be Michigan State. This is a big one.
Yeah.
I will be a more believer if they can go into Washington and beat this Washington team who, we both thought in the preseason was going to be a pretty good Washington team. Hard to judge what they are because they've played two, soft gimmies in a row. But I will say, unlike Auburn, they put it on the two soft gimmies and won impressively. Michigan State, more in the Auburn vein of, yes, they've won, but it's not exactly been impressive, the wins. So how do you handicap a Michigan State, Washington?
Oh, this game screams trap for Michigan State all over the board. I think that's a long road trip. Washington's a tough environment. They're playing well. They're going to have a full crowd there, and I think Washington's the better team. Yeah, honestly. I just look at I think this is going to be a tough matchup. I think it's going to be a ugly matchup for sure. But I think Washington in the end will have enough offensive firepower to put it away. Yeah,
and I guess I just didn't copy and paste it in there. But I did make a bet in this conference, and it was Washington minus the 3 over Michigan State. I'm going to hedge here on Washington, thinking they're the better team here. I just don't like Michigan State. I think them going on the road into this environment, they're going to struggle here, and Washington's going to control this game. So I do have a bet in the Big Ten. I actually technically have 2, but I'm taking the SEC team. So we'll wait till we get down to the SEC side of things before we unveil that one. But yeah, Washington minus 3 out of this one. I think, I think they're the better team. I want to see Michigan State sort of prove it that they can hang on the road with a team like this. So yeah, that one's on that one. I do like your picks in this one. So where are you going on?
Yeah, I already talked about it. I like Purdue here. I've got a $500 play on Purdue to go in and win in the Dome. And I like the under in that Michigan State Washington game. I've just got a $250 play on that. But I looked at that 56.5. I don't see both of these teams scoring near 30. I think one of them could get to that value, but I don't think both of them. So
the only way that I think that would occur is turnovers. Now, granted, both these teams have had quarterback issues who have led to that.
Or like 4 overtimes, which I can also see something weird like that
I'm not
happening.
counting overtimes.
But I like the under here. I think 56.5 is a pretty good cushion. I think this could probably be in the 40s.
Yeah.
So I've got a $250 play on that.
Yeah. Keep that in mind. It might come up into my parlay and teaser section in the totals. All right, let's move to Conference USA. I put one game in here to talk about.
Well, we already talked about UTSA and Houston. So
let's talk North Texas UNLV.
Interesting game.
Interesting game. Now, UNLV went to Cal. We talked about them not winning, but playing well. It was a Cal game, so it looked the way it looked. But I thought they played okay. They didn't disgrace themselves. 2016, 2013, I don't remember totally. It was in and around there. So a one-score game. What do you make of this North Texas UNLV team? North Texas going to UNLV. It's basically these are games UNLV has to win to be taken seriously. This is a solid North Texas team, but I don't think it's a great North Texas team, so UNLV needs to win this game at home.
Yeah, I like UNLV staying at home here. I think, while it's not a crazy environment, not having to travel is always an advantage. And I think they've really competed well.
Bringing a bunch of college kids into Vegas also helps.
Yeah, but I think they really impressed me going into Cal and really competing there and almost, coming out there with a win. That would have been really good for you on that parlay. But I
would have retired.
I think this offense is going to come out really strong again against a weaker defense in North Texas. They're not strong defensively as Cal. So I think UNLV's offense could get flying here, and we could get a good game.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm interested to see if UNLV can make that next step and beat these North Texas level teams. But it was no play on it. I couldn't get a good... Everybody seems to be on my UNLV all of a sudden. I don't know why. I was thinking all year long I'd be getting like 10-point spreads. I guess everybody got burned by them in double-digit spreads last year. And now they're favored in games, and I'm like, well, I'm not that bullish on taking UNLV as a favorite. Nonetheless, what bets do you got here in Conference USA? Not a big slate of really good games.
I have UNLV minus the 3. I've got just a one-unit $250 play on that. I'm a little nervous them being favorites. I like getting the push at 3. I do have them in a couple teaser parlays where I've got them plus points. I like that a little bit better. Another one, I picked a few of these last week. Matchups of bad teams. I've got UTEP minus the 3 at New Mexico.
You're going for the New Mexico sweep.
I think I've picked in a UTEP game every week this season, either against or for UTEP. This time I'm going for UTEP minus the 3 at New Mexico. The Lobos are just a very bad team, and I think UTEP can get this win.
Yeah, we'll see if they can go through the New Mexico lands and come away unscathed. But yeah, I looked at that line. I don't know. It was semi-impressed versus Boise. They were a little spunky. They couldn't do anything offensively, which, you figure Boise State has NFL-level defenders, so nobody on New Mexico is going to be able to do anything. But I thought that defense played pretty well versus Boise State. Now, when they finally decide to ditch the quarterback they have in there and go with the backup, the offense might find a little bit more cohesion, but nonetheless, I thought New Mexico's defense played pretty well, and I sort of gauged that too because I looked at the total, and this one's at like 39 on the total. So I don't think they're thinking these teams are going to put a lot of points on the board. So I just, based on that, I sort of was a stay away on that UTEP, even though the number does seem quite nice, especially after New Mexico State, which I think is the better of the New Mexicos this year. Probably should come away, but I just probably watched too much of that New Mexico Boise game, and I was like, they're kind of frisky defensively. They did hit one big play on Boise, but nonetheless, yeah, interesting one. I got one in Conference USA. Western Kentucky's going to Indiana. Western Kentucky plus 6.5, 250 for me. I don't think this Indiana team's all that good. I watched them in that Illinois game. They should have gotten throttled in that game, but Illinois did stupid things and didn't come away. I think Western Kentucky's talent is comparable. I'm not sure there's going to be a huge home field advantage all that much.
And they can put points on the board.
And they can put points on the board.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if Indiana can put points on the board. Getting 6.5 there, I really, really like that. So I look for Western Kentucky to at least cover that spread. And that's a 250 play for me there.
I think if that had got over 7, I'd have been all over it too.
I must say, I was searching hard for 7s, and I might wait and see because the 6.5 number to 6, 5.5 isn't all that much. So if it goes down a little bit, I'm not all that concerned. But if I can get it at that 7.5 number, because people just see Western Kentucky, Indiana, and might grab Indiana, I would definitely jump on that pretty quick. But 6.5, 250 for me. Sadly, I didn't find any games in the MAC to really talk about. It's a pretty empty slate. The MAC seems to either be playing games where they're going to get brutalized or the teams are playing teams that they're going to brutalize. I thought about putting Toledo, Ohio State on here. Toledo's played pretty good football.
To be honest, I was looking at taking Ohio State minus the 31 on
that's
that.
That's what I know. Is there any chance they can hang with them for a little bit? I
think Ohio State's looking
it's
for
not
a chance.
That good a Toledo team.
And Ohio State's really looking for a chance to flex their muscles offensively. They haven't really shown what they can do yet, and I look for them to explode any day now for a 60-point win. And who better to do that on than a weak MAC team?
Yeah, we could maybe Buffalo's going to Coastal Carolina, but Buffalo's been so terrible this year.
Yeah, I think
I wiped that one off the
Coastal
map
was,
too.
17.5 favorites in that one at home. That's probably not going to be close.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I had to sort through. So no bets for us either out of the MAC. So we'll skip down to the Mountain West and Fresno State USC. USC looked pretty good last week.
Offensively.
Sort of. They looked like a Lincoln Riley team. They blew out the doors for a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, and then struggled in that second half. And that was actually more than the South Carolina. I thought I was going to get that back door on that one for sure.
I've stared at this one for a long time. I was big on USC last week, but I watched them play, and the way they're playing, you said it, like Lincoln Riley, there's going to be a game that they're going to lose this year that they're not supposed to because they make too many stupid errors. They give up too many plays defensively to really dominate the way they're supposed to. And Fresno State's a team that's capable offensively for sure of keeping up with them. I looked at the over here, but it was already way too high. It was already at 70.
And
71.
Fresno hasn't played that many high point games. The first game versus Cal Poly, they didn't even get to 40 points in that one. And then that Oregon State Fresno State game, it was a offensive game, but it wasn't really like a back and forth high scoring game. It was sort of play here, play there, and a tight game in the upper 20s.
Yeah, I like USC to get this win, but that 12.5 was just way too much. I think it's going to be kind of a back and forth, and they may, come out and be up by 3 touchdowns, and then it'd be tied, and then Fresno up, and then USC. It's going to be back and forth, high scoring, but I think USC will get the win. But that 12.5 just made this one untouchable.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to grab Fresno because I thought the experience at quarterback, more so than what was at Stanford, could take advantage of this defense because, I was watching that second half because the way USC ended that first half. Stanford sort of creeped in there to the point where it was like, all right, they aren't going to win, but I might be able to get this cover and then the USC offense started sputtering, and it was just sitting there, and I was like, can't Stanford do anything? They, of course, couldn't, but I just was looking at the USC team, and I was like, this team isn't good. I just don't know if Fresno's quite good enough. We watched them versus that Oregon State game.
Yeah.
They played well, but they just weren't as good as Oregon State, and Oregon State came away with a nice win on the road there. And I just don't know if Fresno can go in there. I think they'll have pretty high energy because I think they'll want to try to be the spoiler here versus USC.
Yeah, I think we could see some blows going back and forth early, and USC pull away in the third, fourth quarter. It depends on how much they give up as far as how big of that difference is going to be. I definitely trust USC a little bit more here, but I've got them in a couple of my teasers where I added some points down. I don't like them a double-digit favorite though.
All right, what do you got betting wise out of the Mountain West this week?
This one caught my eye first out of any game, and you're laughing at me. I really like this spread here, and you may actually see them in an upset special. I've got a big-time upset special this week. We'll see if it happens,
This would be the one your boy Achilles Rain hinted at yesterday in yesterday's show.
So I'm taking Nevada plus the 23 going into Iowa. Iowa, I don't know if they'll score 23 points in 6 weeks of play at the rate they're going. So I love getting 23 here. Now, Nevada did lose to Incarnate Word last week.
Well, I did a little research, and they're ranked 6th in the subdivision rankings. So they are projected to be a solid team in the subdivision. I don't know about going into Nevada and routing them by, I don't know. It was large. I know that because I was like, what's going on here? And Nevada had just routed Texas State the week before, and I assume Texas State is better than an Incarnate Word. That might be a wrong assumption, judging from what I saw. But yeah, Incarnate Word, at least a good subdivision team this year.
But, I like, Nevada runs the ball. They're going to drain clock quick. Iowa can't move the ball. They may be able to move it a little bit better against Nevada, but
I'm assuming that quarterback will not be in this week. But I don't know. Maybe he has naked photos of Kirk Ferentz for all I know. But he has been atrocious, basically since Game 3 of last season.
But, honestly, pretty much any team right now in Division One, probably I would take the 23 going into Iowa. The way Nevada plays control the ball offense, I like getting the 3 touchdowns and change. So I've got a 2-unit $500 play on Nevada plus 23. And then we already talked about, we didn't talk about this one.
We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
UNLV minus the 3. Yeah, we did talk about that one. So those are the plays I got in Mountain West.
Yeah, you can do a little fun things with the Nevada-Iowa game because the spread is 23, and then the total is 39. So I don't know quite how that works when the spread and total is 13 points difference than each other.
I tell you what, if the under hits, I feel pretty good about my Nevada 23.
So you could either go same game parlay and do Nevada and the under, or Iowa and the over, or you can do the fun thing where you could predict your bet, and if you take Nevada and the 23, you can take the over on the other side, and they'll probably just cancel each other out, or you can take Iowa and take the under on the other side, and they might cancel each other out, or you might get some weird mathematical luck where they both hit at the same time and you get a 2 for 1 on that one. But just some fun numbers on that one. 23-point favorite, but 39-point total. Don't see that a lot in the gaming world. I got one out of the Mountain West, and that's another Friday game. Air Force versus Wyoming, under 46.5. I grabbed that now because my guess by game time, night game on a Friday in Wyoming, that thing might be down to like 42.5 or so. Neither of these teams I'd call are explosive offenses. And you even saw Air Force last week, who we both grabbed very quickly onto that Colorado one.
I was disappointed, honestly, with Air Force offensively because they actually let Colorado in that for a little while, and they got off to a big lead, but they kind of let Colorado come back in, which surprised me a little bit. But then they pulled away and got it done. But
well, see, that's where watching, because I had that game on one of the TVs in the power hour of nap hell, where every game was atrocious on all my TVs. Honestly, Air Force got up, and then it looked like they were trying different sort of plays on offense to use it as a glorified practice. And then when Colorado made 1.5 plays, all of a sudden the option came back and 10-yard gashes started reappearing. So, but nonetheless, Wyoming struggles to score. They're going to struggle to score on Air Force. Air Force probably top end bet 35 points and versus Wyoming defense, which is still a pretty solid defense with two teams that really have no interest in playing a ton of snaps.
Yeah.
46.5 right now. I think is pretty generous, especially since I think this will drop pretty quick, by Friday night when people are looking for stuff to bet on. All right, let's go to the Pac-12. Couple decent games, actually, out of the Pac-12 here. We talked about Cal. Nice win versus UNLV. Better start to this year than last year. They have their style of play. They play their style of play. They're going to Notre Dame. Notre Dame not been great, but honestly, we talked about that Marshall game, and we both had our ears perked. And I think after the second series, I sent you a text message, and it was like Notre Dame's in trouble, and Marshall hadn't even scored yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you could basically see Notre Dame's offense could do nothing. Marshall's corners were sitting literally on top of their receivers, saying, you can't throw it deep. We're just going to put everybody in the box and see what you can do. They couldn't. They got a couple turnovers. They got to work their way on offense. So I'm not sure this game's going to be all that pretty.
No.
Can Cal get a really, really big win here and go into Notre Dame? Now, the Notre Dame quarterback that was in is not going to be in. He got hurt, so new guy in there who... He's a little more dangerous arm-wise. He can get the ball down the field, but if you saw it, he came in, towards the end of the fourth quarter, and he's the one who threw that pick six to Marshall. So he's a little bit more reckless, too. You sort of had the guy who was in, doesn't push the ball more than 5 yards down the field, but he doesn't turn it over all that much, which, based on this Notre Dame's offense, might be a better play than turning it over a lot, where you try to at least just get your defense on the field and get a handful of stops and maybe one or two plays go your way. So what do you make of this Cal Notre Dame game?
I want to take Cal here, but I think sheer desperation and will to win is going to pull Notre Dame through. But it very well could be another really ugly game. I could see a 13-10, 14-9 kind of game. Neither one of these teams are really great at putting points on the board. Cal only mustered up 20 against UNLV, and I got to say that Notre Dame's defense surely is better than UNLV's defense, especially at home. I think Notre Dame was able to pull it out. I don't know if they can cover the spread. I think last I looked it was 10.5, which is quite large for a team that hasn't won a game yet this year.
And also doesn't score points.
Yeah.
They haven't scored 10.5 points in a game.
I don't have a play here. Smart play is honestly probably taking the points with Cal, just a shot there, but I think Notre Dame's going to find a way to get this one because I think they've got a lot more losses left on their schedule, and they're going to need to get one here.
Yeah. I didn't want to be aggressive, certainly not on that spread with Notre Dame at 10.5. I'm not touching that. It was more whether I wanted to take Cal. I think I ended up putting Cal in a parlay down there because I just think that number is way too big for two teams who are basically virtually identical play styles and play. So that was that. I can do without, we're already talking about the coach being terrible. Oh, he's 0-3. Well, one of those games was Ohio State. Everybody's going to lose that game, and I can do without counting his bowl loss, where 2/3 of the team probably didn't even want to be there after Brian Kelly. So yes, the Marshall loss, not a great loss.
Yeah.
But Marshall's also a decent football team, too. So it's not exactly like the most disrespectful thing. He didn't lose to Incarnate Word. If that had occurred, then I'd be a little more nervous. But, losses at Ohio State and to Marshall, and some stupid bowl game where you take over a week before the bowl game. I'm not exactly ready to fire the coach just yet. Maybe give him a year to see what he can do here. So that one you might not want to view on your TV. Just watch the bottom line. And
But you know it's going to be on NBC.
It might spring up a point every, hour. All right. Big win for BYU at home versus Baylor. Then a really, really good game. We both knew that would be a good one. I think someone had nodded off by then. I stayed up through it because I knew that one was going to be a good one. I had my power nap in the hour of desperation on the 3:30 slate.
I managed to wake up and watch the third quarter of this one. Those really late West Coast starts are tough on an old man. But.
Yes, I know. Well, you got the good side of Baylor on that one, so. And I think it was about the only time they scored points in the whole game. So,
really impressed with BYU.
Yeah, I thought BYU played really, really good football. Yeah. So, new challenge. Going up to Oregon here. Now, we have a bad visual of Oregon playing Georgia. I don't know how much of that is just, one, Georgia's a better football team. That was clear. And that game just got out of hand, and then they sort of packed it in and are back up north. Can BYU go up there into Eugene and win? That's a much, much difficult task here. Oregon's defense still pretty good. Offensive questions. How do you see this game playing out? Because I think this is really interesting and sort of a really key game for BYU.
Yeah, I think this is another great game for BYU. I think this could go down really similar to the Baylor BYU game. BYU on the road here is going to be a bit more of a challenge, but I think they may be the better team, and we were talking. BYU has an opportunity here to really start standing out on the national level. They win here, they start looking ahead to see if they can run the table and maybe peak at the playoff as an independent. Oregon hasn't really impressed me a whole bunch on offense. They looked a little better this past week, but we'll see what they do against BYU at home. I think BYU's got a really stout defense that's going to make it tough on Oregon.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see if we get the good Oregon defense. If we get that, this thing's going to be tight because my guess is they go real conservative on offense, Oregon. And then BYU has a tendency, if things get tight, to sort of conserve too, especially on the road in Oregon. They'll just sort of play it out like the Chips do. I really wanted to put BYU straight bet here, but I ended up sort of cowering out because of the road game. But you mentioned it. I think this is a huge game for BYU. They can put themselves on the national stage, and if they do run the table, they do need to be talked about into the playoffs. Certainly by who they've beaten. They still got Arkansas on the schedule, Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame, but they still have legit football players who are decent at football. If you can run that slate and have wins at Oregon, over Baylor, over Arkansas, over Notre Dame, and at Boise State, they're at Boise State, that's a lot of good wins. So, big game for them on the national stage if they can go up to Eugene and win this one. But I'm curious to see where this goes. I do like that 3.5, though. I will say it might work its way into a bet, certainly by late at night, depending how the rest goes. All right. I think the game we both had our eyebrow raised and on. North Dakota State, who hasn't gotten a Division I team matchup since about 2016 because most of those teams wised up and said, let's not schedule them. But nonetheless, Arizona scheduled them. There's not a spread here, but I looked around and most people think it'll be about North Dakota State, a 1-point favorite here. I think we were both sort of hoping the plus would come. I think everybody knows better. But North Dakota State goes to Arizona here. What do you think North Dakota State raises up? I was impressed with Arizona again last week versus Mississippi State. They didn't play great, but
competitive.
But they at least looked like they belonged on the field. But North Dakota State, whole different animal, probably the best subdivision team ever, and have been in the championship game 15 straight years. Have won it 10 of those.
Yeah, I wouldn't put this North Dakota State team too far behind Mississippi State.
Yeah.
As far as skill and talent, I don't know.
At least starting 11s.
Well, and they don't have to do the schedule that say Mississippi State does. They don't have to be ready for the big dogs week in and week
11
out.
on 11, not depth wise because they don't have that. But
But and they're able to. They've got a lot of teams on their schedule that they can beat no problem. So these big, going up against these power, teams like Arizona, they can really get up and get ready for it. And you talked about it to me earlier. They've really shown in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
They get up for these games and they usually win them. So I think if you're getting any kind of plus money with North Dakota State, you take it. Honestly, I'd probably take them up to -3.
Yeah.
If it got more than that, I'd get a little worried about it. But I think they're going to get a win here.
Because also the game doesn't matter technically to them
Yes.
either. But you mentioned it. I looked it up because I recall every time North Dakota State played one of these, I always take North Dakota State. Since 2007, they're 8-2, straight up. That not spread. They've won, and there's some good ones. Kansas State, Iowa's in there. Iowa State's in there. It's not just low level. It's legit teams that they've beaten. So and then since they lost 2 in 2007, and since then they hadn't lost any. So really they're 6-0, stepping up straight up. So if they're getting points, I'd grab that as quick as you can because sharps are going to be all over that too, pouring in money.
Yeah, I don't have that on my picks, but because I was really waiting on a line here. But you can tentatively put me down for a play on this one.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is up to -4, I still good taking North Dakota State. And honestly, by game day, up to -6, I might be good. Taking North Dakota State. So I'm in on that one. North Dakota State. What the spread is, I think it'll be 1. Pick 'em 2. So 500 for me on North Dakota State on that one. And then I got Washington -3 versus Michigan State. I talked about that one earlier.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Yeah, I definitely want to play on that North Dakota State if it's in that area that we think it's going to be. But I also have a $250 play on this BYU plus 3.5. I think this game's going to be really close, and BYU getting the 3.5. I think they're the better team here. I think that's more just for the road challenge. But if this comes down to a field goal game, that 3.5 could be huge. So I'm going to go with the value there.
Good call. All right. I might jump in on that one as well. So let's go to the SEC. Lighter slate of good games this week. There's a lot of large spreads. We talked about the Auburn-Penn State one. Next one, Mississippi State, LSU. Mississippi State 2-0. Their road continues, though, now going to LSU. You were pretty bullish on Mississippi State early. Which is unusual because I'm usually really bullish on them. I think I just didn't like the number coming out as Mississippi State -3, which is stupid because Mississippi State is a much better team than LSU from what we've seen right now. I just think it's 30 years of gambling and LSU as underdog in a home game in my head. Even some of those terrible Gary DiNardo teams, you still didn't want to mess with them getting points at home. But how do you break down this Mississippi State LSU game?
Well, I think it really comes down to how aggressive this LSU team is going to be on defense. Their offense, their quarterback can run the ball pretty well. He seemed to be able to pick up his throwing game there towards the end of that game against Florida State. They played a cupcake last week, so I don't really read into that too much. But Mississippi State, they've proven in their last 2 games that they're going to do what they've done since their coach got there. They're going to dink and dunk all the way down the field. Their quarterback's going to get 300 or 400 passing yards by just throwing it 2 yards down the field and letting his guys run with it. So I think if LSU wants to get an edge here, they're going to have to come up. They're going to have to call some turnovers. I don't know if they can do that. I don't think offensively they can keep up with Mississippi State scoring. So I think they're going to have to make some plays defensively. But it should be an exciting game. It could be a little bit of a trap for Mississippi State. They got a pretty comfortable win against Arizona last week, and maybe looking ahead, especially since LSU's already got that loss on their slate, they may be taking LSU a little bit more lightly than they should, which is dumb to do on the road. But I don't see the Mississippi State scoring less than 24, 28 points, and I don't know if LSU can do that unless they get a pick 6.
Yeah, that would be the thing where I might end up grabbing Mississippi State. I'm curious to watch this line and maybe people come in late on LSU. Just because it is at home,
Yeah.
and then I might be a little more aggressive towards Mississippi State because I even if LSU's defense is good, I think Mississippi State's between 24 and 31 points, and then you ask yourself, what is LSU's number that they can get to? Maybe they can creep into that 24 area, and it could be 26-24 type game where we're getting, but if I think if Miss State gets into that 28 to 31 point range, there's no chance for LSU there. And I don't think you really want to be in that game where you're like, well, maybe they can get to 24, and then, you're only getting like 3 points there. So, because this one might be a blowout too. That would be the other thing I'd say. The blowout leans more towards Mississippi State side of thing. So, it's just that number 2.5. Mississippi State, close game, still might come up top, cover that number. Mississippi State, very much more likely to blow this out, cover that number. So it's hard to sort of weight towards LSU covering that number, but old habits die hard, taking LSU as a underdog at home. All right, let's get into our bets. I talked about Auburn getting +3 versus Penn State. I got 250 on that one, and then I got a fun little play here. I don't know if people know this, but Georgia has tended to struggle at South Carolina the last couple of years.
Talk about an SEC shakeup.
Now.
More than SEC.
Yes. I don't think it will happen, but you go back the last handful of years, Georgia, who has been a very good team, has had trouble winning in South Carolina, along with freaky things happening like Blankenship missing field goals. Though, judging by Sunday, I don't know how freaky that is. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with a small little 62-50 play on South Carolina money line, 15-50 for me. So.
I didn't have that play, but I like it.
I'm just going with history.
Beamer got some big wins last year. He could do it again this year. He's got a better quarterback, better players on this team. He's a heck of a motivator. He's going to have his guys ready. Georgia better come ready. Now, I think if Georgia comes out clicking on all cylinders, it could be over quick. I'm not touching that spread, to be honest. I could see them covering
because
it.
They've struggled going to South Carolina with very good teams loaded with NFL players. South Carolina not loaded with NFL players.
We've seen crazy stuff happen before. It wouldn't shock me. Why not put a little bit on that value?
That is pretty much my feeling. It's not a play I think is going to win, but I don't not want to be there if it hits, because South Carolina's won like 3 straight at home versus Georgia. So, it's one of those I throw out there, and maybe I hit the jackpot, and if not, hopefully my other bets will cover the day. All right, let's go to Sunbelt. Couple games here. Troy goes to Appy State. Appy State coming off the big win. Really, they should be 2-0. I think the season would look a lot different if they had wins versus North Carolina at Texas A&M, but dropped that one at North Carolina. Troy going there. Any letdown here for Appy State, you think?
No, I don't think so. I think we might see the offense that we saw against North Carolina in this one, and Troy's not going to be able to put up the points that North Carolina did. I see App State in a big one. I think I've got them in a couple parlays. I didn't like the 12.5 that much, so I bought it down a little bit, but I think App State should get the win.
Yeah, I think that's where I sat here, because I didn't know which App State. We were getting the ball control defensive team versus A&M, or the aggressive shoot 'em out team versus North Carolina. They seem to mold to who they're playing, and I don't totally know what Troy is. So I guess we'll find out. But yeah, that number I stayed away from. I'm curious to see if they have a little bit of a letdown here. And then we'll go to Georgia Southern versus UAB. Georgia Southern coming off the big win versus Nebraska. Can they go into UAB? Get another upset here, or UAB probably a little too much to handle?
I think UAB is going to be too much here. I'm staying away from this spread as well, but I don't think Georgia Southern is going to pull off that magic again. I think that was more of a just let down and bad performance by Nebraska, who knew their coach was probably on his way out.
Yes, I think so as well. But I thought I'd throw it in there to see if we got any takers at Georgia Southern.
And I like continue this UAB team.
Roll. I got one bet out of the Sun Belt. I talked about it. Coastal Carolina -14 versus Buffalo. I think Coastal Carolina put it on Buffalo pretty good. Buffalo gave up 37 points to Holy Cross over the weekend. Gave up 50 plus to Maryland. So I don't think Coastal Carolina will have trouble scoring. We'll see if Buffalo can sort of match them points-wise, but I don't think they will be able to do that. So Coastal Carolina minus 14 for me, 250 on that play. All right, I'm going to go over my parlays and teasers before we get to yours, so I get a little bit of a mouth break before I do our outro. So let's go into the teasers. I got a 10.3 team teaser for a total. All right, so we're going South Alabama, UCLA, total down to 49.5 over. Kansas, Houston, total down to 47 over. And Liberty and Wake here, what is that total at? That totals at 53.5. So we got a 3-team 10-point teaser, 53.5 for Wake, Liberty 47 for Kansas, Houston, South Alabama usually a 49.5. Got 125 on that. That's 120 on that 10-point teaser. And then another, we're going the other way. We're going unders on the 10-point 3-team teaser. Here, we're going Cal Notre Dame. Under the 51 in that one. Michigan State, Washington, under the 66.5. I think we're pretty safe.
Yeah, I think you're safe. Well, since I'm playing the 56.5, I think you're definitely safe on the 66.5. And then
San Diego State versus Utah, total to 59 under on that total. All right, let's go to games in my teasers. I got a 13.4 team teaser here. That's going to be at minus 130, 250 on this one. Memphis down to -1. Kansas State down to -1.5. NC State to +3. Oklahoma to +2 on that one. So the 13.4 team teaser. Yeah, we're always safe in teasers till one decides to screw us over. I don't know which one it will be, but one of them will. And then lastly, a 7.3 team teaser to +120. I have Auburn to +10, Miami to +12, BYU to +10
I like
on
that
one.
one.
Yeah, that one I like. Sort of get all those teams that are getting like a field goal, bounce them up over that key number of 7, in and around 10. So I like that one a lot. Probably more so than the 14, 13-point, because I already know one of those is going to ruin my day and lose outright, and I will just be like, why do you play teasers? You're an idiot. All right, let's go to my money line parlays on the underdog side of things. We don't have numbers on this, but we're going with the subdivision upset. Southern Illinois over Northwestern, and Villanova over Army. I'd really look at that Villanova over Army. They play a lot of option teams in their conference in the subdivision. They won't be stunned. They run the option a version of it themselves, and they are one of the top powers in the subdivision as well. Not quite as dynasty-wise as North Dakota State, but they've been very good for a very long time. And, you know, the talent difference between Army and Villanova is not going to be outrageous. So I'm going underdog parlay, but that one might be a little lighter than people think on the underdog side of things. I don't think they'll be favored like North Dakota State, but it might be only like a 4-point spread on that one. My next one, we're going Western Kentucky plus 210 over Indiana, and Miami plus 180 over Texas A&M. That one is plus 768 on that 2-team underdog parlay. Our next couple, get into the big numbers. All right, we're going to ride Kansas again. Somehow I've taken Kansas every week as the underdog and haven't made any money on it. But nonetheless, Kansas plus 270 over Houston, and Old Dominion plus 275 over Virginia. I kind of like that one.
Old Dominion with the Virginia sweep.
Yes. Looking at that one pretty good. That one is 13.25, so 13-1 on that 2-team underdog parlay. We're going Western Michigan on my next one, plus 310. Playing a Pitt team they beat last year, if you remember. I don't think any of us know who's going to be playing quarterback. You look at that Pitt game versus West Virginia, and then you watch what happened to West Virginia versus Kansas. You start to get a little nervous what Pitt is. I don't know if Western Michigan's all that great a crack. Someone had to hold on for life as they had to have a 75-yard run to pull out the game versus Ball State. But nonetheless, they beat them last year. This is a worse first Pitt team. So that 310 I kind of like, especially since Pitt's going into Western Michigan there. And then we're just going to ride the Cal plus 340. Maybe Notre Dame isn't very good offensively, and that continues. That one's 17-1. I think that one's worth taking a peek at because both their teams they're playing are not very good football teams right now. One of them might be playing their third straight quarterback. So
I don't want to hate on them too much. Yes. We'll see in a moment.
Yes. But nonetheless, one of them might be playing their third string quarterback who they were scared to put in when the backup quarterback could no longer even walk. So that probably says a lot. And then lastly, my last one, I'm going Rice plus 360 over Lafayette in this one. Lafayette going in to Rice. I think that'll be a more difficult game than you think. They didn't play well, Lafayette, in that first half versus Eastern Michigan. Now, they put it on them in that fourth quarter and scored 28 points in that fourth. But nonetheless, and then I'm going to take UT San Antonio to plus 380. That one, plus 2108. So a 21-1 two-team underdog parlay. You gotta love those. All right, let's just go to my regular spread parlays. Like I said, I've hit 5 on the year. I've taken, I believe, 10. I'm 50% on hitting parlays so far this year. I wouldn't look for that to continue, but as long as we can hit one or so a week, we'll be in good shape. But BYU plus 3.5 versus Oregon, and then we're going to throw in Southern Illinois and Villanova, whatever that spread is. I like both those spreads. 3-team parlay. This one's going to be the big underdog one. UConn plus 47.5 versus Michigan. Big ups to Michigan for playing a real tough schedule to start the year. I think they've been 30-point plus favorites 3 games in a row. 40 plus, 2 straight. So
then we'll get to hear about how tough their schedule is when they get later in the Big Ten.
So Dynamite, real tough scheduling for Michigan to start the year. Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Doesn't get much tougher than that. Mind you, Colorado State just lost to Middle Tennessee at home last week. That was one of my underdogs I had. So anyone thinking Colorado State is a great team might want to relook that. But UConn 47.5, Akron 47.5, and Rice 12.5. The monstrous points parlay. Then we're going SMU plus 3 versus Maryland, Northern Illinois minus 2.5 versus Vanderbilt, and Western Michigan plus 10 versus Pittsburgh. And my last one on the day, Arizona State minus 20 versus Eastern Michigan. I think Eastern Michigan will struggle having that game down in Lafayette, going back home, then going back out to Tempe. That's a tough little 3-thing road trip. I'm willing to bet Eastern Michigan's flights aren't chartered either. Just judging. UCLA minus 14.5 versus South Alabama, and Memphis minus 14 versus Arkansas State. So that's what I got for the week in my parlays and teasers. What do you got for us, Dynamite?
All right, first off, I've got a couple teasers this week. You talked me into some last week. You've inspired me. I've got... this is a 6-point teaser, so I've got UNLV that flops that.
You're still getting some juice on that one. Get plus 280 on that.
Yeah, I'm getting plus 280 on this 6-point teaser. I've got UNLV, so plus the 6 that flops that from minus 3 to plus 3 in a game I think they should win, but I just wanted to be a little bit safer there. And then on to Pitt. I've actually got Pitt in both of these teasers. A little nervous, but I watched that Western Michigan team, a team that I thought was going to come out and dominate Ball State.
They did not.
I was nervous about that pick watching that game last week. So this is more of a bet against Western Michigan, and I think one of their 2 quarterbacks, either Slovis or Patty, is going to be able to get out there and win this game. So I'm going to take Pitt, but with the 6 points, I think it puts them down to 3 or 4 point favorite, so it takes it a little bit more manageable. Mississippi State, that gets them to getting 4 points, and Florida State, so that gets them to getting about 4 points. Yes. So I've got those 4 as a
over the 3 keys on the 3-point line.
And then I've got a 5-leg 7-point teaser here for 350. Starting with that Pitt team again. This puts it down to 3 points, so it gets it to that gets it off that hook there a little bit. USC, this takes it down to a 4-point favorite. Purdue goes from a pick 'em to getting 7 points at Syracuse.
Nice.
I think that's good. I think it's going to definitely be within a touchdown there if they don't win that game. Took App State down to a more manageable spread there, and Oklahoma as well on those 5 teams. And then last up, I've got the upset special of the week. I've only got a 62.50 on this, but it blows all your parlays out of the water. 2-team moneyline parlay, getting plus 44.01 here. That's 44 to 1. Nevada, I talked about them earlier. I like this Nevada team. Well, I don't like this Nevada team. I hate this Iowa team.
That would be
and I like this value here. I think this is incredible value on a team against a team that can't score. They're averaging 7 points a game, and one of those games was 2 safeties and a field goal. I'm going to take Nevada money line, and another upset I like, UTSA money line going into Texas. So those two together, plus 44.01. If it hits, I probably won't hit anything good the rest of the year.
Nor will you need to. But Achilles is following on that one. He was showing.
I think he put a whopping $2 on it.
He was showing it off to everybody in the store. So that's our bets for the week. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow all our shows all week. We just dropped our NFL recap. We'll be back on Friday to do our NFL picks and best bets. Be sure to check out everything on the Greenlight Network channel. That's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.